Welcome to Haunted Escapes podcast with Chris and Diane. Since this is our first episode, I figured we would introduce ourselves. My name is Chris Turner. I'm 40 years old. I've been interested in the paranormal since I was a young kid. Growing up, I always would write stories about it, and then when I got old enough, I started going out and checking different places out and seeing different haunted locations. And then I had some experiences that happened, which really got me interested into it. And then I just so happened to be lucky, and when I was looking for that special someone, I happened to find
Me.
Diane.
Yes, hi, my name's Diane Turner. I've been interested in the paranormal since I was a little kid. Growing up, we lived in a real creepy house where there'd be creepy noises and things I saw as a kid and noises I'd hear as a kid. And um, I happened to meet Chris, and our first date, we spent about 3 hours talking
Yeah,
about
probably.
personal ghost stories. So I was like, yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, when you can sit there in a car with somebody and you can just talk to them for 3 hours just about ghost stories and have a good time, you pretty much know that that's the person that you're going to be able to go with.
You want to get into the first episode?
Yeah. So first we got married back in 2016,
2016, yes.
and we wound up going on. When we were looking for honeymoons, it was going to be either Disney. Everybody wants to go to Disney, and then we looked into Louisiana and New Orleans, and that struck our interest more. So we decided we were going to go try to do that. So we set up for a trip, our honeymoon, a
Mm-hmm.
haunted honeymoon down to New Orleans.
Yeah, it was. We would have had. It was a big party. It's a big party town, and we would get more for our money, more time than at Disney.
Yeah, I think Disney it was like
Astronomical.
$5,000 for a week, and we got double that at New Orleans for like 2,700, something like that. So yeah, it was really really cool. We stayed in two places. Our first place, so it was the Magnolia Mansion in New Orleans, and then we stayed in the Myrtles Plantation.
Yep, and that brings us to episode number 1. This is going to be Haunted Escapes, episode number 1. Haunted Honeymoon in New Orleans, part 1, the Myrtles Plantation.
Yeah, so we figured we wanted to talk about that, explain to you the stuff that we went through, give you a little bit of background of the Myrtles. Most people probably know because it's the Myrtles. I mean, they're huge. But we're going to go through over it, and then we'll tell you the stuff that we went through, and then it's probably going to be a 2 episode podcast. We're going to do Myrtles first, and then we'll go over the Magnolia. So now we're going to get into the Myrtles and a little bit of history. This is from their website. So it says the drama of the Myrtles Plantation began in 1796 when General David Bradford, also known as Whiskey Dave of the Whiskey Rebellion, fled the United States to avoid arrest and imprisonment. Bradford arrived at Bayou Sara, then a Spanish colony, and obtained a land grant of 650 acres from the Baron de Carondelet to begin a new life. In 1820, the Myrtles was sold to his son-in-law, Judge Clark Woodruff, who remodeled the mansion. The Sterling era. 14 years after the house was sold to Mr. Ruffin Sterling, who completed the mansion in the grandeur that one can see today. The 125-foot-long veranda is noted for its ornamental ironwork. The entrance foyer contains some of the finest examples of faubourg.
Some French word.
Yeah, some French word. And often pierced frieze work in existence today. The French chandelier is Baccarat crystal and weighs more than 300 pounds. The stained glass entrance
It is
original.
really pretty.
Yeah, it is. The stained glass entrance original to the house was hand painted, etched, and patterned after the French cross to ward off evil. The ladies' and gentlemen's parlors are mirrored reflections of one another. These two rooms are identical in size and exhibit magnificent open pierced frieze work molding. The Carrara marble mantles grace the north and south walls of the parlor. Now, when you're there, you can see them. They have a mystery tour, and they walk you around and they show you that. But when you're staying there, that's locked off.
Yeah,
you
that's
can't.
off limits.
Yeah, you can't get in there. The dining and gaming rooms, important in plantation life, are downstairs. The former provided a place to hold festive dinners and to discuss events of the day. The latter offered a restful and intimate atmosphere for games of chance. That's another area that is you can see it when you go on the mystery tour, but it's locked off at night.
At least when we were there, we weren't able to get in there.
No, we saw it during the tour.
Yeah, but you can't like.
Yeah, you have. I think you have to get like a written thing from them that lets you to actually go in there and stuff. Next is the Legend of Chloe. Now I know everybody heard of her.
This is the ghost that everybody's most familiar with.
Yes. The National Geographic Explorer filming crew determined that the photograph definitely contained what appeared to be an apparition of what they believed to be a slave girl. The slave girl appeared in the breezeway between the general store and butler's pantry of the mansion. The horizontal exterior boards of the mansion were clearly visible through the body of the apparition. National Geographic Explorer used the photograph in their documentary and suggests that a postcard should be made of the photograph.
Now, this is when you go there. This is one of the famous ghost photographs that they have on display, as well as some photographs that some of the guests have taken.
Yeah, during the tour, when you go through their haunted mystery tour, right towards the end of it, they stop in the dining room, and they talk about everything, and then they show you this picture. And the picture is really cool. Like you can easily see what's there and everything.
Yeah, it looks like a woman in a turban.
Yeah, it does. It looks like a woman standing there. And then also on the top, when you look up near the windows, you can see what looks like two kids.
Yeah, two little silhouettes.
Yeah, the photo was taken as a zoning thing, and they actually, when they were doing it, after before National Geographic looked at it, the Myrtles had someone, they came in, they took the pictures for zoning. Well, they actually contacted them, and they didn't take the video because they said there was somebody in the video. Mm-hmm. And that's when the people at the Myrtles looked at the photo. And that's when the people at the Myrtles looked at the photo, and there was nobody there. And that's when they started thinking it was the ghost, Chloe. So then they sent it to National Geographic, who did a bunch of tests on it, and they came back that it was all authentic. It's pretty cool. They show you it there. You can see copies of it online and everything, but when you go there, they show you the actual photograph. It's like marked with red from where the National Geographic people circled and said what should and shouldn't be, and it's neat. It's definitely neat.
And this was on display when we were there. We don't know if anything changed, if they took anything down, added anything, but we can only talk about what we saw and witnessed when we were there.
Yeah, and when we were there, that was part of the tour. Then they have there's another bunch of other ghosts that they say live in there. One is the wife of Ruffin Sterling, and she said to haunt the bedroom that we actually stayed in. We stayed in the room called the Ruffin Sterling Suite, which used to be the children's nursery. And now in the story, Chloe, she works in the house, and she gets caught eavesdropping on Bradford, who then, as a punishment, cuts off her ear and sends her out to work in the kitchens. Now think about it. It's Louisiana. It's the summer. It's hot. Now she's in the kitchens where she went from being in the main house. So she tries to figure out a way to get back into the good graces of her master. And what they wind up doing is she's going to poison the children with a dose of oleander leaves.
And then nurse them back to health.
And then, yes, her goal was to nurse them back to health, which they would be, oh, fantastic job. She would get back into she'd be allowed back into the main house and all would be well. Well, the problem was when she decides she's going to bake a cake and put the oleander leaves in the cake. Well, her measurements were off, and instead of making the children sick, it killed them. It killed two of them, I think, and Bradford's wife, because Bradford wasn't in town, and the other girl was asleep because it was too late. I think they
I
told
think
you.
she was too young.
Yeah, something
Too
like
young
that.
to have
So,
the cake.
so when Bradford, so then afterwards, when Chloe finds out that she kills these people died, she freaks out. She doesn't know what to do. She runs out to her fellow slaves, and them, because they're worried of what kind of punishment they would get into, they wind up actually turning on Chloe, and they hang her from one of the trees out front on the lawn. And then after they hang her, they take the body and they weigh it down with stones and they toss it in the river. And so Chloe's spirit is one that haunts the house. So are the two little girls that passed away, as well as Bradford's wife.
And Katie Winter.
That came after. That was another family bought William Winters. I think he bought it after the Sterlings, and he had he wound up his daughter he had a little girl. She was like 3, and she actually wound up coming down with yellow fever, and then she dies from yellow fever. And again, when we were there, they have the portrait of this little girl that was started before she died, and then they finished the portrait after she died.
Yeah, and you could see a difference.
And you can see the difference. On the one side, when she's alive, you can tell, like, she looks, well, alive. And on the second side, she's more bloated looking, and you can tell that
the face is drooping.
Yeah, the face is more drooping. It's a very
eerie
painting. So now we're going to get to the actual story, what happened with us when we went there.
So we stayed there 2 nights and 3 days. Our first night, so let me start by saying that when we got there, we were given the keys, and we were staying in the Rough and Sterling room, which is part of the original house.
Yeah.
And there's no, like, doorman or footman or anybody to help you with your bags. So you gotta carry your bags up these old 1800s
they were like 17
steps.
something.
So that, in the first place, that in fact is an adventure, because getting our suitcases up those steps was not pleasant.
Yeah, the stairs were really, really high. It was very steep, and because I guess the house is so old, everything is like warped.
Yes.
So it really throws off your balance and your dimensions. So yeah, lugging our bags up the steps, that was an adventure in its own right. And then as we're going up the steps, you look over on the wall, and there was this creepy painting of some guy standing there. And
was it Bradford?
It might have been, and it was definitely weird.
It was a portrait. It was about 7 feet tall.
No, it wasn't that big.
5 feet tall.
It was like 3 feet, maybe.
Well, let's start with our first impressions. What were your first impressions?
The first impressions when we pulled into the place and saw it, it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's got the giant trees, the oleander trees, or not oleander trees, the myrtle trees, and then you see a bunch of like, it's got all these old sculptures, and it's got the big porch that goes all the way around. It's really nice. And when you walk down there, you go to what it's like a gift shop. That's also where we checked in, and they had a restaurant there, and it was really nice. We went in there, and we got they gave us our key. We got our stuff upstairs, and when you get up there, there's at the top of the steps, it's like a sitting area, and then there were 4 bedrooms.
Yes.
That were from the original house. There was the one we were staying in, which was the children's nursery, And then there was one next to us, which had an adjoining door. That was where like the nanny would stay.
Yes.
And then on the other side, right across from us, was the infamous doll room.
Yes.
And then next to that, it's called the John Leake room, I think, and that's stories about a Confederate soldier who was wounded, and he went in there and he wound up dying. But yeah, we stayed in the children's room, and going into the room, our first day there, we unlock the door. The door opens, no problem. We go in. We're walking around. It's a very old room, very small. The room was very small, but it was really neat. It was creepy, but it was pretty neat.
Mhm. Yeah. Let me start by saying that when you first arrived to the Myrtles is what you think of when you think of slow Southern living. That's what you think of when you get to the Myrtles. It's sipping lemonade or iced tea in a rocking porch, just staring
Which
out.
we actually
at
got. We actually did that.
Yes, we did. Sipping lemonade in a rocking chair, just staring out at the pond, watching the ducks, and yes, we did get a chance to do that.
Yes, we did.
But yes, that was my first impression when we first got to the Myrtles, and then moving on to our room, which we found out was the children's nursery. When we first opened the door, there was a nice big canopy bed. I think there was a fireplace. Was there?
Yeah,
a fireplace?
there was a fireplace, but they had it you couldn't use it.
Blocked off, and a closet, no TV. There was central air conditioning.
Yes, there was.
But our room didn't have a bathroom. That was
no, yeah, that's the thing. The only ones that have their own bathrooms are. See, we were in what was the original house. Then they have the add-on, which was from the Ruffin Sterling area. Now, the add-on is when you see, like, the shows, and they walk in, and it's got the stairs, and you have, like, the mirror that everybody talks about, where you look in the mirror and you can see the ghosts or the images of Bradford's kids and his wife in there. That area is the what they call the main house now. That's got 2 suites on it, one on the first floor and one on the second floor. But we didn't stay there. We were over in the original part of the building. So back to about the room. In our room upstairs, there were 2 bathrooms at the end of this hall, and that we had to share them, basically. The 2 rooms share one bathroom.
The Ruffin Sterling suite and the infamous doll room. That room that was across from us also didn't have a bathroom. So there were 2 bathrooms at the end of the hall. One was for ours, and one was for their use.
Okay.
And then the 2 suites up there, they had their own bathrooms, but we didn't stay in one of the suites.
But it was, so we go in there and we unpack our stuff. And, we go down and we start doing what everybody does at the Myrtles. We're got our AVPs out recording. We're going around trying to see if we can pick anything up.
Mm-hmm, because if you stay there, you're allowed to walk in the main part of the house and look into the infamous mirror where everybody sees the faces of the children. And there's also the steps where who was the one that died on the steps?
I think that was William Winters. He gets shot.
Yes, and he dies on the steps, and there's stories of hearing footsteps and seeing him at the top of the stairs, but we didn't witness any of that.
Yeah. So we were in our area. We walked around, we did some EVPs, we went into the doll room. There was actually a couple who was staying in the doll room, but something must have happened with them because they didn't even finish the night. They left middle of the night.
Yes, the first night we were there, they had all of their ghost equipment out with their EVPs and their cameras, and then something must have happened in the middle of the night, and they left. By the morning, they were gone.
Because the way it was when we went anyway, I don't think they do it anymore. But you would go in there, and you stayed the night, and then the next morning they had a big breakfast. And you would go downstairs, and they made you breakfast, and you would sit there and you swap stories with the other guests, and everybody talks about whether or not they saw things and stuff like that. It was neat. I don't think they do that anymore, though.
But our first night, we didn't experience anything.
Yeah, we didn't do nothing. You think that you would, because that was the night we went on the mystery tour. That was the
Yes,
night we found out the room we were in was the one with the kids. And they,
children's nursery.
yes, and they tell us, oh, that room, these rooms are active, and this, that, and then. So, walked around, went outside, went walking through the grounds. The grounds are really very, very pretty, but at nighttime, it's so dark you can barely see.
Yeah, well, let me say that we didn't experience the first night. We didn't experience anything in our room.
Yes.
When we were walking around, that was a different story. There's
Outside.
when we were walking around the grounds, it was after our mystery tour, and we were doing a little bit of ghost hunting before bed. And there's a tale. There's one ghost called the caretaker, who is supposed to walk the grounds, check on the guests, make sure everything is in order. And as we were walking, we kept hearing footsteps behind us.
Yeah, that was pretty creepy. So we're walking around now. It's pitch black in this place, and all we had was our light from our phone, so we didn't have a lot to see. And as we were walking around the grounds, it kept sounding like there were footsteps, somebody behind us.
Mm-hmm.
And we would stop, and we would turn around and look, and there's nobody there. And then we would start walking again. You walk for a while, and then you would hear it again. And that happened off and on the whole night. And then then we went to bed, and we thought that we were going to maybe have something weird happen. We ran our recordings and stuff, and we went to bed. Well, nothing happened. The next morning, we wake up. We were ready to go down for breakfast. We open the door from the room, go downstairs. They sit around, and all the people who went on the tour with us who stayed there, they were asking. They're like, oh, they're talking about, did you have anything happen? This, and we had nothing. It was totally quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So then we walked around the second day, and that's where we got to relax. It's definitely a place you want to go if you want to relax. Like, you can sit on the porch in the rocking chairs. You can get something to drink. You have your lemonade. You just sit there. It's just very relaxing. There's no running around.
Yeah.
There's no hustle and bustle. It's very laid back, relax. We spent the day wandering around the grounds some more, doing some more of the ghost hunting. And then we wound up going upstairs, and we went to bed that night, and our door was jammed. It was jamming on me, and I couldn't get it open. So after messing with it, I finally got it to open, and we went in, and then we were ready to go to sleep. And that is when some weird stuff started to happen. So we went to bed, and we're laying in bed that night, and Diane just passed out. Falls asleep, no problem.
Yes, let me say that the whole time I was there, I kept saying out loud, I don't want to see anything. I can deal with EVPs, I can deal with pictures, but I do not want to see you in the flesh. I do not want to see you I do not want to see you hovering over me when I'm sleeping. I kept saying that over and over, so when it was time to go to bed the second night, I just passed out. I don't know if it was from nerves or just exhaustion, but Chris is the one that had the interesting story.
Yeah, so before we went to bed, I was frustrated because you go to the Myrtles, you want to have something creepy happen.
He wasn't frustrated. He was angry.
So we're outside, and I heard the footsteps, and that was creepy. But you want something substantial to happen.
And it wasn't our footsteps. We would stop walking, and we would still hear the footsteps, and we'd be peering into the darkness with our little camera phones, trying to see if anybody's there. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, there was no one there. So then I was complaining. I said out loud, I was like, this is all bull crap. Nothing's going to happen. Well,
He was saying that all the stories were just stories, that everybody makes up everything, and then this happened.
yeah, so I lay down, we go to bed. Like I said, Diane fell asleep right away. She was out like a light. I'm laying there in bed, trying to sleep, and I fall asleep, and then I wake up.
And we had, I think both nights we had the phones running in the background to
Oh, yeah,
catch
yeah, yeah. We
anything.
had recording thing running to try to catch any kind of EVPs and stuff. So I go to bed, and I sleep for a while, and then I wind up waking up in the middle of the night. It had to have been around probably a little before midnight. And I'm laying there, and just you know when thing like the air just gets very heavy, and you can tell thing it's like weird. So like all your senses are on high alert. So I'm sitting there, well, laying there in the bed, and all of a sudden it feels like I start hearing humming. I start hearing like a humming noise, like and that was weird, and I didn't know what it was.
Like a little kid, right?
Yeah, yeah, like a kid or a parent or somebody who would be humming to you. And then I try covering it up, thinking it might be one of the people in the room next door to us. Try to get to sleep. Well, then now I start feeling what it feels like something was on the bed, at the foot of the bed. There was like a pressure pushed down at the foot of the bed. And it was followed by where it got like my feet got really cold. And it was so like substantial where I actually like flipped my blankets a couple times, thinking to see if what was going on. And then the blanket would settle back on me, and I would lay there again, and again it would start. I'd be all right for a couple seconds, and then I would feel it again, and then it started feeling like this cold mass was moving up the bed, and it was coming closer between like to in between me and my wife, and
And let me just say that I slept through the whole thing. I didn't experience none of this.
yeah, she just slept through it all. It was all me. So I'm laying there, and I feel this pressure on me, and it keeps getting higher and higher, close to the bed. And then I would flip my sheets, and then settle down, and it would start over again. And this went on for had to have been about 3, maybe 4 hours. And I wound up just waking up, and then I woke my wife up. So then we get ready, and I told my wife what happened, and she tells me, "Oh, that's because you were out there questioning everything,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, you were
said
taunting the children,
you're
taunting the
taunting the
ghosts.
spirits." So then we go down to breakfast, and I tell everybody the story, and then this other couple says that they heard someone. They were staying outside, and they had an experience where they kept hearing someone walking back and forth in their cabin.
Yes, they were staying in on the plantation grounds. There's the main house, the main house, and then on the grounds of the plantation, they have cabins that they built to accommodate more guests.
And these two people who we had met the night before, they were from down there, and they were just there for I guess to stay for the night. And they told us that they had heard footsteps back and forth in their living room of their cabin all night long, and then they heard what sounded like their sink
Yeah, they're saying.
running,
Hmm.
and it got to the point where they actually called the nighttime maintenance people and had them come over because they thought something was going on, and they told them no, nothing. So then that was weird. And then there was this other family from Australia,
Hmm.
and they were staying in the main house, the newer part, in this one suite. And they said that after we told them what happened to us, and it ended right around 2, 3, they said that right around that time, down where they were, they started feeling similar things, and they said that they felt like someone was messing with their toes.
Yeah.
So everybody sat there, and then we heard, as we told them the story, uh, the lady who was working the front desk over was listening in on it, and she's like, "Oh yeah," she's like, That's just one of the many stories." And there were these two guys who were cooking the breakfast, and they worked on the grounds. They would do the cooking, and they also did like they cleaned the rooms and stuff. So she told them, "Oh, tell the story about what happened in that room." And they tell us they were mopping the Rough and Sterling room right before we had gotten there. And they got done mopping everything, getting it ready, when they saw,
Little children's footprints
little
in
children's
the wet
footprints
floor.
in the wet floor walking towards them. And they said they just noped out of there.
Yep.
And you can't blame them. So then, after we heard all that, we went upstairs and we had, if you've ever seen Miss Esther, she's been in all the shows, and she's like, she's a pretty big deal there. Everybody knows her, and
Yeah, she's worked for the Myrtles a long time. She's been on Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures.
a lot
Um,
of the
yeah,
documentaries about the place.
yeah. Pretty much any documentary or show you see about the
Yeah,
Myrtles,
Miss
Miss
Hester's
Esther's
on
going to
there.
be in it, and she was super nice.
Oh yeah, she was super nice. She took a picture with us and everything. And then she asked us if anything strange had happened where we were staying. And I explained the story to her. And she goes, okay. She goes, well, answer me a question. I said, yeah, sure. She goes, when you got here, did you have a hard time getting into the room? I'm like, what do you mean? She said, was the door sticking? So I told her, I'm like, no, it was fine. We got in and out. It opened. We had no problem. She's like, okay. Now, last night, after you guys did your walk around the grounds, did the door stick? And I told her, I was like, you know what? Yeah, it did. It like stuck and it was hard to open. And she goes, oh, she's like, yeah, that's just the children wanting to play with you. She said, she said they do that when they're going to have a rambunctious night.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, it was really really weird. And then
Chris got to play with the kids.
yeah. So then we went to on the way home after we checked out. We replayed our EVPs that we took, and the one EVP we got, it sounds like a little girl saying hello, and then she says, "Who's that?"
Yeah, she says, "Who is that?" Which means she was talking to another ghost.
Which means there was most likely more than one ghost in the room with us. Just this one, one of them was braver than the other and decided to climb up and mess with me.
Yes.
And then afterwards, a couple months later, we were watching TV, and this other people went to this ghost thing, and they were talking to somebody else who was there who stayed in that room. And the other person said that when they were there, they had the same type of stuff that happened to me happen to them. Humming, followed by what felt like a little kid trying to climb in bed with you, like the way like your kids would when they want to try to cuddle up next to you. So that just brought back all the memories of what happened while we were there. And it was an amazing place. Uh, Everything about it was great. The hospitality, the stories, the other guests, everybody was there. They were fun. They were nice to talk to. It was just a really great experience. And we're looking forward to go back. And I would definitely recommend any of you guys who were listening to try to get there when you can.
If you're the, I guess that's what I'm gonna ask you next. Is your final impressions of the Myrtles?
My final impressions of the Myrtles was it was just an amazing place. It was gorgeous. I had wanted to go there forever. And my mom had always wanted to go, and she passed away without being able to see it, but I got to go see it, and it was just, oh, it was next level. I would definitely say stay more than one night,
Yes.
because I believe that one night you probably ain't gonna really experience it too much, but if you can stay 2 nights, I would recommend it because it's just amazing.
Yeah, that's kind of a theory that we have about the Myrtles, that you have to stay more than one night, and it's just a theory based on a lot of it's not scientific or anything, but a lot of the shows that we watch, they go and they stay a couple hours, or they only stay one night and they don't get any evidence or some evidence or none at all. But that's the theory that we have, is that you have to stay more than one night.
Yeah, because for you to stay one night, you're expecting a ghost or the spirits to do things on your time. And they're not going to do things on your time. They're going to do things when they want to. They're not going to act on command. Sometimes they may, but for the most part, a lot of the story, like shows you watch, they don't get much. But if you stay longer, you're opening yourself more to it. And I think you have a better chance of things happening. So we're big on thinking that if you go to like a haunted location, like a hotel or something, you want to stay at least 2 nights, because then it gives you another more of a chance for something to happen. I mean, if you can do more, obviously you would do more, but I would say at least 2 nights.
Yeah.
But the Myrtles was beautiful. It was beautiful. The hospitality was great. Miss Hester was amazing. Yeah, everything was awesome. I am looking forward to going there again, like I said, and I would advise anybody who listens to this, if you get a chance, you want to try to get down to St. Francisville, Louisiana, and go check out the Myrtles Plantation. I think you'll really, really enjoy it.
Yes, I pretty much second that. It's a great location. It's great. The staff is great. The accommodations are great. It's like you go to New Orleans, where it's alive and there's music, there's dancing, it's loud, and then you go to St. Francisville to
the Myrtles.
Yeah, for your hangover cure.
Yeah, pretty much.
To relax.
That's it. Actually, we stayed at the Magnolia Mansion in Louisiana first. But we wanted to do the podcast and talk about the Myrtles, because most people know about the Myrtles more so than the other place we're going to talk about in the next podcast. The next podcast will be about our time in Magnolia Mansion, where that was in New Orleans in the Garden District. And we were there for about 5 days?
Yeah, almost a week.
We were there for about a week. And there were some really cool things that happened there. And there's a pretty cool story about all that. And then we'll also go into some details on some of the ghost walks that we went on while we were there in New Orleans. There's tons of them. And there's so much to see and do. And a great place. It was a great choice for us. And yeah, if you got a chance to, you should try to get down to New Orleans, and definitely try to stay by a night or two at the Myrtles Plantation. See what happens.
Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, it's something that you should definitely try to experience at least once.
Yeah, I agree. So that's everything. Again, this was Haunted Escapes with Chris and Diane. We also have a page on YouTube, a YouTube channel called PenEpic Horror Stories. We'll have links in the descriptions below, and it'll tell us that they got stories that usually they're ones we've made up or things that we've experienced. And we have we're still kind of new, and we only have maybe 7 or 8 videos up there. But yeah, if you want to, I would say go check it out, like and subscribe, just like here, like and subscribe to the podcast, so you can know when we post new ones. We also would like to say whether or not you have your own stories from your own haunted escapes. You can share it with us at an email. You can email us at penepicproductions@gmail.com.
Yep. All of our links will be in the descriptions, and thank you for listening to our first podcast.
Yes, thank you for listening to our first podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed it, and we'll have another one out next week. All right. Thank you very much, and have a great night or day. Bye-bye.